So this contains elements of technical presentations that I've done, and I've tried to make it introduce the technical experience, the technical terms in a way that all of us can understand it. So I did run it by my husband this morning, and he said this really, he said, finally, what you're talking about makes sense. So I know you keep on saying it's in the brain, but now I understand why you mean it's real and it's in the brain. So I hope that this has a lot of impact. And so please slow me down and tell me. I've got to keep Sharna on my screen because she told me that she would pull her hair if I was talking too quickly. So we got to find her here. So you all are welcome to pull your own hair too if I'm talking too quickly as well. So I'll look at everybody's heads. So we were told to talk about a personal story. My husband said, well, this is kind of boring, but I think it's interesting. So here's a visual to go with it. Graduated in medical school in 2008, where I learned all about pain. I learned about how pain is a marker of tissue injury and how to dose opiates and how that pain is a fifth vital sign. And that it's an emergency, that we want to get people on medicine so they don't experience the sensation, that we weren't good doctors unless we were able to make people not experience pain. So this is what I went out to thinking. Started my residency 2008 to 2012. I was in residency, had my first baby, and this is 2012, my second baby. I was studying for my board exams, poured over studying for my board exams. Felt like I knew everything, felt like I was ready to practice. I was ready to go into the world and save everybody. There was not going to be a problem that I wouldn't be able to solve. So started practicing in New Hampshire, and this is us in cold New Hampshire. Now this little baby is this little baby there, and the other guy was 2.5 at this picture, and now he's this size. I realized that I was failing. I really felt like I never felt like there was a problem that I couldn't solve here. But here I really felt like my patients kept on coming in. And the more they came in, the more I felt like I'm going to get on top of this. I'm going to make them not suffer. I'm going to dose their opiates. I'm also going to find out what exactly is happening. If a nerve is damaged, I'm going to find the person who can cut out that nerve, or I'm going to find out what's the tissue damage that's causing this pain, because there has to be tissue damage that's causing that pain. But my patients kept on getting sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. And I started to feel more and more like a failure, that I was failing these people that kept on coming in to me. I thought I could save the world. I'd worked so hard. I'd gone through medical school. I'd worked really hard through residency. I thought there was nothing that I couldn't figure out. But then realizing that I couldn't do it. 2019, I attended the Oregon Pain Summit, and finally things started to make sense. I started to learn that pain is not a marker of tissue injury, and I started to learn how pain is constructed in the brain. Started to learn that despite markers of tissue injury or without tissue injury, every pain experience is real. I learned to start listening to my patients. I learned to start understanding more of their experience. And this is me in 2021. I'm still learning. I still don't have all the answers. But I feel like I'm closer to where I wanted to be back in 2008. So thanks to Sharna. So let me talk about the topic that I wanted to introduce you all to. So when I was talking to the OPSA board folks on Saturday, I was thinking about how could I best summarize the things that I've been thinking about that really, I've been trying to explain this to all my friends and family for years. How do I explain it in a way that makes as much sense to them as it did to me in the Oregon Pain Summit? Now, the Oregon Pain Summit was 2 days of lots of intense information. How do I do this in a shorter period of time? So when I met with Raleigh, Cindy, and Sandy, they said, well, it'd be nice to talk about what happens when I stub my toe. And then also taking that to the next level, how does pain become chronic? And then how does knowing about pain science help? I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. This is all these things that you all know and you've been talking about, but I just wanted to give my perspective on this. So we'll start off with what happens when I stub my toe. So I think Kevin doesn't like to share this picture because it's so outdated. So outdated. This was in the 1600s. This is how we understood pain in 1600. And it really hasn't changed that much from the way we're taught in medical school, that there is one signal that goes up one wire and it trips off a part of the brain. Descartes said the pineal gland. This is what we thought pain was. And this is how we're still teaching it. So much of medical science has evolved. But this is the way we used to understand pain, that it's just this one wire that when you touch the fire, you get this injury that goes up and it sets off a signal that just turns off and on. It's an off and on switch. It really isn't. And I want to prove to you guys that it really isn't this way. So how do we know that it isn't? How can you do an experiment to prove that this isn't the case? So let's talk about some experiments that kind of prove that this isn't the case. So this picture is wrong. So the danger signals, so talking about point A right here. So the danger signals that get activated when there is tissue damage become active when the skin reaches 105 degrees Fahrenheit. This was supposed to be Fahrenheit here. I changed this all. This was originally in Celsius, but my husband said it's not going to make sense unless I change it. So this experiment was done where you take a lot of people and you take a heat probe and you put this heat on the skin. And you wait until the person says, ouch. Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. And you wait until they say, ouch. But then you also have probes in their skin to see when those fibers are active. So you have a probe on their skin to see when the fibers are active. And then you're also asking them, does it hurt? Does it hurt? So they can see from the readings that the fibers start to become active at 105.8 degrees Fahrenheit. But the person doesn't say ouch until 111 degrees Fahrenheit. So the signal is coming in from the outside, but no one's saying ouch until it reaches 111 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not that just the signal that it just turns off and on. All right, I maybe haven't convinced you. Let me give you another experiment. So let's take a sharp pin. This sharp pin wasn't actually pushed, didn't break the skin, but a sharp pin was pushed into the skin. You have one sharp pin that's hot, one sharp pin that's room temperature. So you take a room temperature pin and you put it on the skin and it fires the C fibers, those danger signal fibers start to fire really slowly. Beep, beep, beep. And then if it gets really hot, it fires really fast. Beep, 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 beep. But people can't differentiate the two. So it's not how fast they're going. It's not like it's Morse code where it's just like, this is a signal, we're going to get the signal up to this part of the, it's not just that one signal. There's so much more to it than that. All right, I've got two more experiments. So you take a warm stimulus. Remember we talked about the stimulus was 111 degrees Fahrenheit when the person said ouch. So 113 degrees Fahrenheit. So you take 113 degrees Fahrenheit stimulus and you put it to something 1 millimeter wide. So 1 millimeter is about a third of this 3 millimeters. So just to give you guys a sense of how big 1 millimeter is, it's described as a pricking pain. At 4 millimeters wide, so this size right here, it's stinging. At 20 millimeters wide, so all probably this whole fingertip, it's a pleasant, strong, warm. So it's not the number of the danger signals that are firing. It doesn't match what people are experiencing. One last experiment. So you take a 15-second painfully hot or pinching stimulus. You pinch, 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 pinch. Those signals are going crazy for the first 15 seconds. Those fibers are just sending all this information out, but then they stop after 15 seconds. You keep on applying this painful stimulus. The person keeps on experiencing the sensation. So it doesn't really match what's happening. These signals are doing something and people are experiencing something different. So that picture does not make sense. So what is really happening? So I'm going to just show you guys some pictures. So this is what we look at for a nociceptor. This is the signal that are just hanging out in the skin that just start to look for danger, these danger signals. So it's not like directly you get injured and you feel this, it doesn't directly trip this off. This can be tripped off by any injury, and you have all these chemicals that get released that cause these danger signals to start to be activated. So this is what it looks like the danger signals start to look like. So when this danger signal gets tripped off, it releases a lot of substances outside. So right underneath the skin, a lot of substances outside of the skin that help the skin heal. So it has things that promote bone healing. It has things that make the blood vessels become bigger to let all the healing ingredients get to the part of the body that needs to be healed. So thinking about how important this danger signal is for healing. So when this initially happens, when you have an injury, this danger signal needs to fire in order for the body to heal itself. So thinking about how important that is, that it needs to fire in order for the body to start healing itself. So then what happens is that this signal goes all the way to the spinal cord. And there's going to be a lot more information that gets transmitted, but it's going to meet another nerve that's going to send information up to the brain before it even gets processed as anything. Those signals, the strength of that signal is going to change. The more you fire it, the more important this signal is, the stronger this sensation gets. So this may never change. So if someone injures themselves, and the spinal cord may change in such a way that it remembers that injury and it'll be much more sensitive to anything that happens in that part of the body in the future. So you have this protection system that starts to get turned up based on any injury that you've had before in the past. And the same thing happens in the skin too, that any injury that you've had in the past, it can remember it. So all these injuries that you've had in the past, there's a potential for the central nervous system, for these nerves to remember this injury. Now, keep in mind that I'm talking about the nerves. It's not the tissue that's causing the pain. It's the nerves that are causing these signals to be sent up to the brain. So this is the most important part. So you get these signals up to the brain. It's not pain yet. You have this danger signal being sent up to the brain. And these danger signals meet up with this part of this brain. This part of the brain is called the thalamus. And so what this part of the thalamus does is it receives all of the signals from outside, from throughout the body. All the signals are being received here. What's really important is that this thalamus sits right next to the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is where all of your memories are stored. So think about all the memories of any sensations that you've had before are stored here. And remember, this is really similar to what's happening in the spinal cord too, that you have all those memories that are stored there too. This side sits right next to the amygdala, which can fire off and on, which mediates our fear. This is where our fight or flight response is. The faster this is firing, the more fight or flight we need to get out of here. This whole part of the brain is called the limbic system. This is all the emotional part of the brain. So all pain needs to be processed through here. So all pain, regardless of the cause, has an emotional component. I want to also draw your attention to this, that the more painful memories that you have, the more this danger signal is going to start firing, the more the thalamus is going to be sensitive to everything that's happening. So thinking about the set point of things that have happened to people, they're all stored in here. And this amazing protection system becomes more sensitive because it has to be. Just thinking about how we've evolved, how every single organism evolves to protect itself. You can see that in the anatomical relationship here. But I also want to call into to let you guys to talk about when we saw that first picture that Descartes drew, that it was just that one part of the brain that they thought was causing pain. There are actually multiple parts of the brain that have to be involved to create a pain experience. So I want you to think about any activity that you're doing right now. So it's a matter of, maybe even thinking about putting these headphones on. So you want to put these headphones on. You have to know, where's your head? How long and short are your muscle fibers in order to open up this? Where are your ears? Do you need to open this first? Where do you put your head? All of these things have to happen to put this pair of headphones on. That takes so much complexity, but you're not thinking about that. Same thing with the pain experience. You get all of these sensations that are coming up through the thalamus. It's checked against your memories. Did this ever happen to me before? Am I really scared? Am I in a horrible spot right now? Am I really stressed out? Did this happen to anyone else I've known before? What do I think about this? What's my emotional state right now? The prefrontal cortex is the CEO of the brain, basically deciding what to pay attention to, what not to pay attention to, thinking about how you're going to plan the rest of your day, the rest of your life. How is this going to impact my work, my physical activities? What else do I have to do for the rest of the day? Where am I feeling it in my body? Did my parent experience this before? What does this mean to me as an organism? Then these parts of the brain can also communicate with the thalamus, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and can turn down these sensations as well. Well, I've experienced this before. This is not a big deal. I know it's my nerves that's causing this. I know it's going to get better. You can turn down these sensations. So all of this processing needs to happen in order for us to experience pain. All of this processing needs for us to do anything. Our brain does so many incredible things and it does it so quickly. So you think about a song that you listen to over and over again. You listen to the first note. You're going to hear the whole song again in your head. Similarly, with chronic pain, you hear that first note of something. It's going to set this all. The more you connect all of these experiences together, the easier it is to fire. So the more you do it, the better you get at it. You know how to ride a bike. You don't even think about riding a bike. You know how to drink coffee. You know how to eat a bowl of cereal. All of these things, you do it so frequently, you don't even have to think about it. You start putting the spoon up to your mouth, you open your mouth right away. Same thing with the pain experience. I twist my back a certain way. Oh no, this exact same sensation is what happened before when my back started to really hurt, and that meant that I couldn't work anymore. All of this is going to happen without you even knowing it. It happens fast. I put these headphones on without thinking about all of those things that I told you about. This pain experience can be regenerated quickly in the brain without even thinking about it because these get so closely wired together. So thinking about how does pain stick? So we talked about the brain can get really good at this. So there are really important neuroscience concepts. The really important neuroscience concept is salience. So if a sensation or an action is salient to an organism, it's going to stick. If it has evolutionary, if it has a role to protect the organism, it's going to stick. It's important. This is what we need to do. We need to protect ourselves. So this is the pain catastrophication loop. This has been proven over and over again in terms of how pain may become chronic. So you have an initial injury, you lift up something heavy, you strain your back, it really hurts. Oh no, I know when people strain their back, they lose their jobs. I'm going to go to the doctor and the doctor's going to tell me what's going on. Doctor told me that, if my back keeps on hurting, I need to come back in because that might mean I may never be able to work again. Oh no, every time my back hurts, it's gonna keep on. It means that I'm hurting myself. Okay, maybe I should just not go anywhere. I'm gonna not go to work today because my back is really hurting, and every time it hurts, I know that I'm damaging myself. I'm just gonna stay home. The more you stay home, I'm just terrible. I can't believe that I can't even go to work. This is awful. The pain starts to get worse. I'm just so miserable. The pain starts to get worse. Oh no, the pain is worsening. This means I'm not going to be able to feed my family. What's going to happen? Start to become really sensitive. I need to pay really close attention to my back because every time I know that signals come, that I feel that sensation, I know that I'm hurting myself more. I'm going to pay really close attention to it. Start to feel it more and more and more, and this becomes really relevant. You can see how this can lead to significant disability. On the converse, hey, I'm having some pain. Backs get better. That's okay. I hurt myself. I know it's the nerves that's doing this. I know this doesn't mean that I'm damaged. It means that I'm not broken. This pain is amazing. It just shows me that my body's doing what it needs to do to heal. I'm going to experience it. I'm going to keep on moving. I know my body knows what it's doing. It'll start to get better. So this impact is huge. Basically thinking about this is not something that people do on their own. This is something that some people's brains are more wired to do than other people's brains. It doesn't mean that someone has a high pain tolerance or a low pain tolerance. It's that the idea that this particular sensation is relevant to this organism because of all the experiences that has happened in the past. So the way that you have processed pain experiences, the way you've seen your parents process pain experiences, what you expect from life, those anticipations that are just hardwired into your brain makes this loop the way it is. This is nothing that people do to themselves. This is something that happens. This is something that people are hardwired to do. This is no one's fault. But understanding this loop is kind of a help for the way out. So this leads to a quote that I absolutely love. This is from a pain scientist in University of Washington. And so the Institute of Medicine was commissioned by the NIH 10 years ago to come up with a report on what is the state of pain in America. And they came up with this wonderful, wonderful quote that I think just ties it all together. In fact, beliefs, anticipation, and expectation are better predictors of pain and disability than any physical pathology. Boom, that's it. That is exactly what makes so much sense and ties this all together for me. This is why I can look at a patient and look at two identical x-rays and have completely different experiences. It has nothing to do with what's going on in the body. It has everything to do with beliefs, anticipation, and expectation. But what's harder to treat? An x-ray or beliefs, anticipation, expectation? What's the low-hanging fruit? This physical pathology. But that has nothing to do with it. I just showed you guys this has nothing to do with it. But this is so hard to treat. This is where the money is. And this takes a lot of listening. This takes, no matter what we say as healthcare providers or friends or family members, you can't change this. This is hardwired. You can wait for someone until they're ready to listen, but this is really a challenging thing to change. And this takes a lot of listening and a lot of patience because people don't have these beliefs on purpose. It has to resonate with somebody. So talking about beliefs, anticipation, expectation, I really want to drive this home that this is not anybody's fault. Nobody chooses to believe and have this anticipation, expectation. This is what society believes. We're part of this society, and this is what we're taught. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how pain sticks and adverse childhood experiences, to talk about how these adverse childhood experiences can relate to people having more protection. Again, we talked about how the brain and the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that stores memory, and the amygdala, the part of the brain that mediates fear and the fight or flight reaction. We talked about the thalamus, how closely they're related. This toxic stress changes the way people's brains can be wired. So thinking about, this was a study that was done in 1995 that surveyed people for 10 different types of toxic stress. And they found that the more people who experienced the more toxic stress events that people had in their lives, the more likely they were to have significant adverse health consequences, like die earlier, have high blood pressure, have chronic pain. The more people experienced it, the more they were likely to have a different experience of the world, because their protection system is up naturally. So these are the types of adverse childhood events. Physical abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. So tying this into chronic pain. So thinking about the CDC population is the general population. So in the general population, people normally experience forced sex about 5% of the time. People with fibromyalgia, 20% of them have had this experience. Hit by parents, this is 10% of the general population has experienced it, versus in the fibromyalgia population, 40% have. And then if you look at, I'm trying to move this thing. If you look at parents hitting each other, this is 25%. This is about similar in the general population, but looking at the difference, these are the hugely impactful adverse childhood events that lead to chronic pain. Thinking about youth with chronic pain, people with an ACE score of 1 or more, the general population is about 25%. And the people, youth with chronic pain, it says the studies say 85%. I would venture to say it's 100% in my practice that most people with chronic pain have had significant adverse childhood events. Thinking about the life cycle of chronic pain. Again, this is part of how chronic pain, our brains get wired to develop chronic pain. In infancy, genetics serve a big risk factor on people developing chronic pain. What genes that they'll upregulate or downregulate in order to create the brain that they live with. Irregular feeding and sleeping can sometimes lead to parental dysfunction, parents' pain exposure. So children, infants look to their parents for what they should be afraid of and what they shouldn't be afraid of. So parents' pain exposure, parents are afraid of pain, the child might be afraid of pain as well. Parents' depression and anxiety, their reaction to pain. In childhood and adolescence, the attachment to parents. So avoidant attachment styles, which we can talk about, abuse, hyperactivity, which can also lead to abuse. Perfectionist tendencies are also a risk factor for pain. And mood disorders is, again, parental reaction to pain. And then in adulthood, lack of social support, vivid recall of childhood trauma, occupational exposure, and development of chronic disease. So this is the recipe for the development of chronic pain. So does that mean that if we suffer from chronic pain, that's it? That's the end of it? I'd like to say, I know that it isn't actually. I'm not going to say that. I'd like to say I know that it isn't the end. I know that there is a way out. So I wanted to just talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I really debated whether or not to include this. Sorry, I want to minimize you all so I can't see your pictures. So Sharna, you're going to have to text me if you're pulling your hair.
Not yet. You're doing it.
Okay. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Maslow is is an anthropologist. In 1940s, he studied some very high functioning people and tried to understand what made them self-actualized. So basically, where they were not experiencing anxiety, where they had lack of prejudice, they accepted facts, they were spontaneous, they achieved this self-actualization. He hypothesized that this pyramid underneath here is physiologic, safety, love, and belonging are all these needs that humans have in order for them to be self-actualized. If these needs were not met, people would experience deficiency and pain. He hypothesized that it comes on this pyramid, that before you can experience safety, you need to have your breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, excretion all met before you can move to the next level. There have been some debate as to how these levels feed on each other, but people agree that generally these are the needs of human beings. Thinking about pain as being an absence of safety, that you feel that the body is unsafe in the situation that it is in at this point. Thinking about chronic pain is that if we are able to target the idea of breathing, and when I was thinking about this, okay, what does that mean to breathe? I think a lot of us hold our breath when we're stressed out. So focusing on breathing is actually a little bit trickier than we think it is. Lots of food insecurity, and also making sure that we're eating and nourishing our bodies, water, sleeping. These are all really important before we can ascend to safety. Sharna was talking about how the importance of family and friendship is also really important too in order to achieve safety. But the end goal being that we need to meet these needs. So when I talk to my residents or talk to colleagues about, all right, this is really hard. How do we help people feel better? Definitely beliefs and anticipation is important, but in order to achieve safety, we can even start to address the simple basics. Are you breathing? Are you taking time to make sure that you're working on your deep diaphragmatic breathing? Because a lot of times when we're stressed out, we forget to breathe. What are you eating? How stressed out do you feel when you eat? Do you feel guilty every time you have food? So do you avoid food because there's a lot of guilt around that? Are you using food as nourishment? Are you drinking enough water? Are you drinking more water than other beverages? Are you sleeping okay? Are you going to the bathroom? I tell my residents, I said, make sure you're asking all your patients if they're sleeping and pooping, because once they're doing that, you know they're good. So thinking about how this all feeds into, this is the fundamental building block of safety. So why does this matter? So kind of wanted to just do this experiment with you guys. And I wanted you to think about, if you believe that pain is equal to tissue injury, what is your goal in the pain experience? And you guys are welcome to chat and put this all in. So if you believe that pain is equal to tissue injury, what's the goal in the pain experience? You guys feel free to use the chat. What do you think the goal is?
I think with tissue injury, my goal is to make it not hurt.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, definitely get away from it, make it not hurt, because this is the end of the world. If you think of pain as protection, how does that change that goal in your pain experience?
When I really hurt, I'm not thinking about protection. I'm just thinking about make it stop. How can I make it stop?
Definitely. Absolutely. So thinking about how can I make it stop definitely is really important. And it's even worse if we think of pain as tissue injury, that this is a danger. Means that my body is broken. The whole goal is to make it go away. Mm-hmm. Thinking about it maybe differently as protection is, why do I need protection at this point? Trying to explore what else may be going on, or why do I need protection? It could be that something's going on, but let me explore it from many different angles. Like, why do I need protection at this point? Thinking about a reaction to worsening pain could be fear, anger, and distress, and curiosity if it's protection, and willingness to move. I don't want to move. I need to stay put. There are experiments with mice when you put them in fearful situations, they just freeze. It seems like if it's a protection, it's okay to move because my protection system is up, but I'm not broken. Thoughts about the future, that my body is able to heal itself. But if I'm broken, I'm stuck, and pain equals protections, maybe I can be hopeful about moving forward. So there is hope. The brain, while we talked about how easy it is for those, once you've really done something over and over and over again, how the brain can keep on regenerating that same signal. As much as those signals are burned in the brain is amazingly plastic, meaning that it can change shapes. You can change the way in which your brain is wired by paying attention to this sensation, what's happening, and changing the song. So if you've got a song stuck in your head, can you change the note to another? Can you change that note to a different note? And constantly practicing that, which takes a lot of time. I don't know if you all have had songs stuck in your head, but it takes a long time to get them out. But eventually you can. So basically, trying to leave you all with, these are the big things that I've learned that have really changed my life. And I just basically wanted to share with you why I think that, why I believe all pain is real, and definitely all pain can change.